John, for making this wonderful film. It was very powerful, very emotional, and beautifully shot, and you did an incredible job. Thank you very much. So, to start with, let me just ask you, you got incredible access. I can't get access like this. They let you in.
Anonymity helps.
Huh?
Anonymity helps.
Okay, right. Well, so hopefully that will not be your problem shortly. But you were able, they let you in to all these meetings, and then the other leaders of these other countries or their environmental ministers let you in too. How were you able to work that?
Well, when I first started reading about Nasheed after he was elected president, and he just kind of immediately kind of tickled a lot of interest of mine, and before long we were having discussions with his kind of international press people, actually Paul Roberts, who's in the film, one of the young British guys, and started to describe what we wanted to do, and he kept saying to me, look, you have to I can try to convince the president, but you're really going to have to come here and just start and sit down with the president and explain to yourself what you want to do. We actually had a friend who's in the audience tonight, Spencer Adler, who has been a big supporter of the film, who gave us a little chunk of money up front so that we could go to the Maldives and do just that, basically sit down with the hopes that we could start the film. And, we were kind of whisked into the office, and before I know it, Nasheed is there, and he let us talk for about 45 seconds, and he's a very busy man, and as you can see. And he said, well, let's do it. I have no choice in life but to trust you. You seem like a good person, let's do it. And I almost wanted to kind of like tap him on the shoulder on the way out and explain what it was going to mean for him, because I don't think he had any idea, what 75 days of filming was going to be like. And it was a constant battle, not just with the Maldivians, who were pretty good to us, but like you said, like every country that he went to, the UN, all those were kind of new access battles, each one, and certainly we lost a bunch that you don't see in the film, but I think we were able to capture just enough.
Were some of those hidden camera, or should I say, tiny cameras, so that they didn't think it was really a film being made?
That's a great question. Almost none of it. There is a shot, when they go into that kind of secret room, and Obama and Sarkozy are there, and you filmmakers probably recognize that the quality kind of drops for a second. There's a couple shots that were done on flip cam by the Maldivian delegation, and then kind of slipped to us. But we were able to film incredible stuff with our big, kind of ENG stuff.
Can I just, that very quick shot of Obama that you got or was given to you, I'd never seen that look on his face before. Did anybody else notice that? It was one. I don't know how to describe it. He looked pissed, and
you're talking about the one where he kind of crosses camera.
Camera.
Yeah, that's me shooting. Yeah,
is that you?
That was me. And then right after that, there's a couple of shots from inside that room where he's going, and Copenhagen was incredibly frustrating, and the leaders were frustrated. You could see it on the delegation's faces, and Obama was certainly one of those people that I think it's like we kind of show in the film. A lot of people wanted to get something very solid out of Copenhagen, and it was a battle. It was just a geopolitical battle.
And in the end, how do you feel about what they really got out of it? Because it seemed like the compromise was very interesting, just to see the president go from an uncompromising moral force to a politician who worked very fast, very hard to get a compromise that he knows in his heart of hearts means the death of his country, even the compromise.
Yeah, his take is that you got to start somewhere. That the countries of the world have to come together and at least have a kind of starting point, which had never really happened before. It had happened, but countries hadn't signed on to it. So he really wanted a deal that everybody would sign to, even if it wasn't perfect, as he says in the film. And as he says kind of towards the end of the film, he's mixed about it. He feels his kind of style as an activist is to push and push and push, and then take what he can get, and then live to fight for another day, and so I think that's that's what he would say. I think that if you asked him today, how's it going, he would say, well, we're still fighting. We're still going.
Can I say, and I don't know if anybody in the audience felt this way, but I felt mixed about him at the end. I felt disappointed. I felt disappointed for him that he had to give in like that, because he made such a strong case for it's death or not death. I mean, there's just no, you can't slice this any other way. It has to be 350 parts per million. And it's kind of like, I don't know, I'm just trying to, maybe I'm being too hard on him, but Gandhi was successful not because he compromised and said, you can give us some rights. The women's suffragists were successful not because they said, you can let we'll accept some women voting. Some issues have no compromise, as he said. There is no negotiation. You either have civil rights or you don't. And there's no halfway measure there. And it sure seems that global warming, especially as it affects him and his country, am I wrong to feel that way? Do I? Yeah.
What do people think? I mean, I think that's an interesting take on it. I mean, I think. Any comments out there? What's that?
Pragmatism.
Yeah, he's a pragmatist. I think, look, we set out to make as honest a film as we possibly could make. We wanted to show that compromise because we felt like that was, that's what happened. And that's who he is. So, I'm not sitting here as his public relations guy. I'm sure that the way he would spin it would be that at that level, there's no other way that if you can't get people into a room and talk about it and at least kind of acknowledge that it's a problem, then you're nowhere. And that he felt like as the leader of the Maldives, it would be almost impossible for him to make enough noise in other venues. That he felt like that was his venue, and that what goes on there is politics, and he had to participate in it. I think that's what he would say.
But when he watched the film in Toronto, he did such a good job of letting us in and knowing him. I think we all feel like we do, and know his spirit. That he, not his spin, but how he truly feels. He's still got to be pretty devastated knowing that nothing's really.
Well, I think his take on that is like he really did like the film a lot, and was kind of bowled over that to see his kind of life story on the screen. But I think his take is that we're all together on kind of the ship, and it's sinking, and it's not just like he says, it's not just the Maldives, it's all of us, and the good people of the world are trying to do the right thing as they find out about this problem, and as the Titanic is sinking, you have to decide, like, do you want to be one of the people who just saves yourself, or do you want to be one of the people that's helping others and trying to do what you can in a really terrible situation? And so I think that's what he's trying to do, and he's trying to keep I think he's really trying to keep his moral compass kind of focused on doing the right thing, trying to do what is kind of a terrible choice, really, but trying to choose, sort of a positive direction when he can.
Did the Indian Minister for Climate Change threaten to attack the United States? Did I misunderstand that? It just kind of flew by, but, our ears are kind of perked up as Americans, whenever we hear someone threatening us like that.
Not that I know of, but he hasn't seen the film yet.
He did use the words "attack the United States."
Yeah. He's a piece of work. He's actually no longer employed by the Indian government.
We know his whereabouts. Okay, and the other conclusion I'm to draw from this is that the Indians are like the Canadians. Is that how Canadians are seen around the world? That they're just kind of hiding behind some curtain?
Well, the Canadians, kind of like Australians, and obviously like the United States, but I think Canadians generally, I think the comment was like that Canadians generally have a good reputation. It's like good to be a Canadian when you travel. But actually, the carbon footprint of a Canadian is like, I think, if not the highest, certainly among the few highest in the world. And they're on the cusp of doing this pipeline deal. I'm sure you've heard about the pipeline deal. And that was actually going on, the whole debate was going on when we were in Toronto, and got a big laugh from the audience. But you know, the environmental movement is really trying to keep this tar sands oil that is, you know, kind of been discovered in Canadian sand, and it's just like terribly ugly process to get it out. The environmental movement is trying to draw a line in the sand, so to speak, about that, because it just like would mean an incredible carbon unload into the atmosphere.
There is very little talk about us, the United States, in the film, and I think the point is made at one point in the film that the Chinese are the biggest emitters. And I don't know if that's true. I don't know if that's. I think we're like, you know, we're 4 to 5% of the world's population. We use up 25% of its energy resources, and we emit 25% of the roughly 20 to 25% of the carbon. But we get kind of off. We get off the hook here in this.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, as an American, I was thinking about that the whole time. Like, you know, what about us as the bad guys? But the reality is that it wasn't part of Nasheed's conversation in that year, and I didn't want to force it into the film. You know, really, what was part of the conversation was India and China and Brazil to some extent, and because those are the countries that I think Nasheed sees it this way, and a lot of the environmental kind of thinkers see that in China and India and Brazil, perhaps could be developed in a way that don't end up with 4 or 5 nightmares like you have in the United States. I mean, the United States, in some ways, the game is already over. But in those other, and obviously there's a lot we can do to kind of you know, undo the problem here. But in India, you got a situation where, you know, 1.2 billion people are going to start moving into the middle class, or 700 or 800 million people are going to start moving into the middle class. And the question is, are they going to drive cars with internal combustion engines? Are they going to have coal plants to do that? And if that starts to happen, as it is in China, then it's really...
But it's kind of hard for us to say to them, you know, if we don't cut back, if we don't stop using...
Well, I think it is hard for us, and that's why Nasheed saying it, I think, is it's easier to listen to. And basically the argument is, look, you know, we know we screwed up, but 2 wrongs don't make a right. And so, you know, it doesn't make it right for them to do it, just because the bad old United States did it.
Let's talk filmmaking for a couple minutes here, and then we'll take some questions. You made The Lost Boys of Sudan, and they made this film. You know, why have you chosen cinema to, you know, express yourself? You could join Bill McKibben's group. You could be an environmental activist, or you could, you know, do any of a number of things to express yourself politically or socially, culturally, whatever. But just curious why you chose cinema as the form.
Well, I really love cinema. I love stories. I believe in the power of kind of the emotional quality of a movie. I think that it can take people places, and certainly can take myself places that kind of shouting about things and politics can't take us. And I think that it's also just an incredible way of life, as you know. I mean, you know, it's kind of an incredible backstage pass. It's an excuse to constantly educate yourself about new things and meet new people. And there's the artistic side, the photographic element. To me, it sort of comes together as just an incredibly kind of privileged way of living one's life. And I think that what's cool, and obviously what you've been a big part of, is in the last 10, 15 years in the country, I think documentary films are taking the place of other types of media that are sort of withering. You know, newspaper investigative reporting as it goes away, and there's less and less money for that kind of thing. I think the documentary filmmaking, independent documentary filmmaking, is kind of helping to sort of feed audiences about stories that otherwise they wouldn't know about.
Right, because networks and newspaper chains used to have bureaus, and So when you make a film like this, and you're an artist, as a filmmaker, it makes you an artist, but you're also trying to show something that's happening politically. How do you know, where's the cart and where's the horse? Which comes first, the art or the politics?
That's a really good question. I think at the end of the day, I'd rather make, for me, it's really about kind of moving people, having people go on an emotional journey. I think without that, then it's very difficult to get people to think. I think people think with their hearts. I certainly do. And when I instantly go to kind of what is the human drama, what is the kind of human passion behind this, you know, what is going on in this person's life, how is it going to twist and turn, and how can we share that with people in a way, in a form that is, you know, kind of actually fun and entertaining to a certain degree, and get them to engage, you know, with part of themselves and with each other in a way that they might not otherwise.
As a documentary filmmaker, are you concerned with this particular genre, this form, in terms of it's getting harder and harder for documentary filmmakers to get funding. There is a means on television networks still to get good funding for documentaries, but documentaries in movie theaters, there seems to be a real crisis at this point, and I'm just wondering if you've thought about that, because now Goldwyn has bought the film, and they're going to put it in theaters, and how do you get people to come to see a documentary like this? And I'm just wondering what your thoughts are, just in terms of this whole problem that we're facing.
It's I mean, the getting people into theaters is it's kind of a documentary filmmaker's dream to have your film theatrically released, and the reality is, I mean, except for a few guys like you who have millions of people go see your film, most documentaries are only seen by actually a very small number of people in the theaters, but it's still worth it for us to have those experiences, because it somehow feels richer when you get together as a community, as everybody here knows, and watch a film together and then have conversations about it and have that kind of be an evening. As good as televisions are and home theaters and all that, it's not the same watching it alone in your room at home. And so yeah, I mean, I think there's 3 or 4 Goldwyn people in the audience tonight, and we spent half the day brainstorming about how to get people into the theater, because I feel like that community aspect of it is really important, and it's now, fortunately or unfortunately, however you look at it, it's now part of our job when the film is done to crack that nut as well, the distribution thing, and to be, literally every day involved in the brainstorming about how we're going to get people to see it.
I think people do want to see these stories. I think the problem a lot of times are the theater chains, the distributors, exhibitors. You have great distributors like Goldwyn and others who will take the time and then spend the money with independent films like this and documentaries. But I don't know. I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because I think that we're in trouble as far as this goes. And I'm just curious, because we all know this, when you start to make a film like this, are you thinking, when you think of the imaginary audience, is this an audience that's watching this on a television screen or a computer screen or an iPhone? When you set out to do this, you want the collective experience of the
children? I mean, I don't know. What do you? I think of this. I think of sharing.
I agree with what Anthony Lane said in the New Yorker this week or last week, that you cannot call it cinema unless it's in a movie theater on a movie screen. It's something else when it's on a device. And he has a very eloquent